Hello, it's Garnet, and we're still in the brain shaping aspect of the Neurolite Practical Guide for Beginners. If your pages are the same size as mine, I'm on page 30, but if the page doesn't exactly match, I'm working now in brain shaping, progresses in steps and stages. So let's go a little bit further into it so you have an appreciation, kind of what to expect and how to lean towards the brain shaping concept. Now we know this is a practical guide for beginners, and I would not expect a person in the early stages, the beginning stages of working in neuroplasticity with the Neurolite, to jump right into brain shaping, although some of you may be able to do that, and if you can, more power to you. You know, if you have a working background in similar fields, if you work in bioenergetics, if you work in psychology, if you work in the domains of conscious change, if you're a life coach, if you've had education in neuroplasticity, then you know you're going to be ahead of the game. So here, every person is unique, and that means that working in brain shaping with anybody will have its own set of unique characteristics. There's no neat and predictable path that you're going to be able to follow. The really good news is that, and I firmly believe this, is that given the opportunity, a person is their own very best authority about themselves. I use this in the interview process, which you can refer to at other times, but the three parts of the interview process, leading up to a Neurolite session, is getting it going usually with a provocative question of some sort. I always like, do you want more of something good or less of something bad? And the second thing is that you have to be really present. You have to be present for them to be present. The other is using this thing called active listening, where you key off the hot word and whatever they say and feed the hot word back. But underneath all of this is an attitude or an appreciation that that person that you're working with, a little bit more tricky if you're just working with yourself, that person that you're working with is their own best authority. That means that they will guide you in guiding them. You don't have to be super wise. If you are, that's great. But don't put the pressure on yourself to be super smart and see all these things. Reflect back. The authority is in the person. That is one of the big reliefs and the big powers of brain shaping with the Neurolite, is that you're going to use them as the source of information so that you can make choices that are best for them. Why are they best? Because they're making the choices actually themselves, kind of through you. So here we are. I'm flipping the page. And what you'll notice on my page 31 is I've got 5 different guiding principles here. And we're spending time in the beginner's guide in the brain shaping, looking at the guiding principles so that you can have some sense as to where you're going. But you'll also notice that many of these guiding principles that you use in brain shaping, these principles are also the same principles that you've been using in the brain exercise and the help right now, to some degree. So, the first one, this one I go to so often, I hope you're not bored by it. You've got to make sure in the brain shaping process that the neuroplastic demands are not greater than the neuroplastic capacity. Same oh, yeah, I come back to it all the time because it's the very basis of all of the kind of the metrics that you're going to be using as you go along in brain shaping. So you've got to be aware, crucially aware of the person's, we'll call, vitality. You know, if the vitality is low, what you may find is that their commitment is weak. And it isn't that they really, it's not like they don't want it, they do, but they just don't have the juice to stay in that motivated state. So if you're wanting to do brain shaping, and you recognize that this person's brain fitness, the neuroplastic capacity, their general vitality, don't think you have to look inside the ear to see the brain. You can tell by the whole picture of the person, their general presentation as to their vitality. If the vitality is low, you've got to go and actually work in the brain gym. And say, yeah, I know, I want to do brain shaping. I'm not just doing brain exercise, but depending on where they are, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start somewhere. And if that starting point is a low vitality, then you've got to build that vitality in order to move along. So I say here, the short story is, if vitality is low, spend time in the brain exercise area first. So you're not retreating, you're not losing, it's not like, oh, I really wanted to go into the fancy stuff. You want to do what works. And if the vitality is low, there's a decision this person really wants to reshape their life, reshape their brain. Boy, you don't realize how important your brain is until aspects of your brain don't work. And there are lots of people that have that happen. And there are many stories about this. Great books, inspiring, scary books. If you've known anybody that's had, for example, a cerebral stroke, like a brain stroke, does that change their life? So, number one, demands cannot be greater than capacity. If it's low, you got to build it up. Number two, it's first things first, but it's number two. It's kind of odd. Okay, you can only work with the person that exists right here and right now. It's a little bit like, an aspect of what we just talked about with vitality. This is extremely important because this person may be in a strong identification with their past, or they may be projecting more towards their future. Or if you're, as a light coach, keep focusing on the past, trying to connect with some kind of future person, it won't work because neuroplasticity works in the moment. It's right here, right now. Yeah, there's an influence as to the characteristics from the past, and traits do tend with probability into the future, but the actuality is you've got to be present. You've got to be with that person right now. They come in, boom, what is happening right now is the reality. That's the person you can work with. And most oftentimes, you'll be able to find your way to connect, or maybe you've got the talent and you can see it, but it's going to be expressing itself mostly as a feeling state. That feeling state is the way that you can help find them in the present. So, number two, first things first, you'll find access to neuroplastic change by working with the person that is right there, right at that moment. The person in the present, because that's the only place and person that you can work with for neuroplastic change. The past has a reference, the future has a projection, but the present is the reality of who you work with. So tune in, get access through a feeling state. Number three, one thing leads to another. I like bumper stickers. What will happen as you begin to work within a session or session to session to session in brain shaping is that there are going to be states that are emerging. Realizations, feelings, challenges, dreams, whatever. And these emerging phenomena, the qualia of their experience, is the way that you work to shape the person over time. You keep following their emerging experience. It's fascinating, it's honest, it's efficient, sometimes surprising, but it works. So don't rush things. Don't try to jump ahead because you think that's where it's going. I have a kind of another analogy of saying, and I raised my daughter with it as well. We sometimes still talk about it that way. I say it's like a bloodhound on a scent. You know, the bloodhound stays on the scent and follows the scent wherever it's going. It doesn't lift its head and look over this. I bet that the scent is going over there to that tree, so I'm just going to go straight to the tree. I don't want to follow the scent because it's taking too long. No, it'll stay on the trail, and that trail is true. And you know, what you want is you want the person to not have change. What you want is you want them to be the change. And in that sense, don't rush it. Don't try to push them ahead so that they can have a new behavior. You want that behavior to be the way they are, and neuroplasticity will be like that. It will manifest like that. And remember that, you know, the whole thing of functional synaptic and the neuronal and the systemic, how there is a physiologically based timeline to these things, and a person will find themselves being different, not having a different attitude, but actually being different in their experience. So that's the one thing leads to another, and the way that you don't want to rush it, and you want the person to become the new person and not just kind of have qualities of a new person. Okay, number 4. Simple things done well work well. I think in my life, period, just personally, but certainly professionally, and I've spent a lot of my life teaching and developing methodologies and designing things, I can say with firm confidence that simple things done well work well. Frequently a person will start to try to do things that are more complicated because they're not getting the results that they had hoped for. And the reason they're not getting the results is not because the thing is too simple and is going to be solved by being more complicated. It's the fact is that they're not doing the simple thing well. And with simple things, there's no place to hide. You can't fake it. You're either doing it well or you're not. So here, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, some things come and some things go. Stay with it. Work with the fundamentals. Look and see, am I doing the simple things well? Is the setup with set and setting, you know, the expectation? Is the light intensity there? Am I giving the person enough time between compositions? Do they need to sit up and refresh or let them be? Are they having some kind of reasonable, committed reinforcement after? Look at the real simple things that I pound on all the time, the things that I used, frankly, to create the design features and all of the methodologies and even these trainings for the Neurolite. Simple things done well work well. Lastly, attitude and reinforcements. Here it says you can call it faith, self-directed neuroplastic change is all about attention. You have to experience the experience. You have to be conscious and aware. Attention, not rigid and focused, not sharp like a laser, not big like the sun. Simply be present and have attention. The supercharger of attention is faith, and I've said before, I don't mean here faith in a religious sense, a heartfelt confidence. So in brain shaping, you may have to, in the light coaching role, work to help this person sustain an understanding. Sometimes you're going to have them read a book, like one of Norman Doidge's books or something. You know, there are different ways when they start to have a harder time or time is passing. No, it's, again, if you're an exercise trainer or something, that there are sometimes you've got to embolden them, you've got to fortify them because, really, but yes, really. And you will learn, I've already spoken about some of the one-size-fits-alls, but the reinforcements that what you want is, you really want a lifestyle change. If a person wants to go into brain shaping, it isn't typically, I can't say absolutely, but typically, it's, if this is their life, they can't just bring this into their life and then try to fit it where it's going to fit. Maybe in the beginning that would be okay. But really, neuroplastic change, positive neuroplastic growth, is not something that you have, it's not even something that you do, it's something that you are. It's a lifestyle change. It's a way of looking at things. It's for persons, for example, that awaken to the fact that life has a spiritual core, that the way that life is lived, the lifestyle, is a more spiritual lifestyle. So, in this case, the attitude and the reinforcements, they play a huge role in brain shaping. Now, brain shaping doesn't have to be long, but it can be long. For example, in maybe an extreme, if a person has more than just a desire to improve themselves, they're trying to dig themselves out of a hole. Perhaps they experienced some degenerative disease, or they had a big kaboom, a brain stroke or heart attack or something. It does take time. It will take, in those cases, like of a stroke, it will literally take years, but the payoff is tremendous because they're reclaiming aspects of their life that just vanished in a moment. So, attitude and reinforcement. Consider these. If you're new to the Neurolite, if you just got it, just begun using it, even over the course of weeks or even months, depending on when you encounter this information, be happy. Be happy that there is so much creativity that awaits us here. And as you develop your own style, which you will, you don't have to use the Neurolite instrument like I do. Your methodologies don't have to be precisely what I recommend. There are different ways of interpreting the principles for good effect. I feel very satisfied to be able to offer you this advice at this time, to offer you these methods. I hope that there are many of you out there that learn and explore and discover and create ways of using the Neurolite, that then you can help me learn what you've learned. I would welcome that. I would be so happy. So please trust yourself. You're trusting me. Let's learn together. Thanks. Bye.